Anetons, connecting professionals.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that I think many IT folks have run into. That moment when an SCCM download just stops.
Yeah.
Stuck at 0%.
Yep.
You're staring at that progress bar waiting and nothing happens. Can be incredibly frustrating. So we've gathered some really detailed sources on this specific problem, and we're going to, dive deep into troubleshooting it systematically.
Absolutely. And it's more than just, a download failing. It really opens up the whole SCCM ecosystem, the clients, the DPs, the network piece, all of it has to work together. So our mission today really is to pull together a kind of step-by-step guide from these sources. The goal is to help you figure out what's wrong quickly and get things moving again. It's amazing how many moving parts there are for just one download.
Right. So, picture this. You see that 0%. It's mocking you. What's the very first question, according to our sources? Where do we start the detective work?
The absolute first step, and it's critical, is figuring out the scope. Is it just one single machine acting up? Or are you seeing this problem across, several machines?
Okay, scope. Makes sense.
Yeah, because if it is just one machine, then you're probably looking at something client-specific. Could be a corrupted client install, maybe a local network issue just on that box, or even some weird local setting.
Right. Keep the focus small.
Exactly. But if multiple machines are stuck, that points to something bigger, maybe server-side issues, or perhaps a boundary configuration problem, or even the distribution point itself might be unhealthy. Getting that scope right at the start, it really helps focus your troubleshooting.
Definitely narrows the field. Okay, so let's say we know the scope. The sources really hammer home the importance of, everyone's favorite thing, logs. Which specific SCCM client logs should we be digging into first? And what kind of clues are we looking for in there?
Oh yeah, logs are your best friend here, no question. You'll usually find them under Windows CCM logs on the client. And the sources point to three main ones for this 0% issue.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's cas.log. That's the content access service. This tells you if the client is even successfully reaching out for the content on the DP. Look for errors, maybe timeouts repeated over and over. That suggests communication problems.
Got it. cas.log for access attempts. What else?
Then you've got locationservices.log. This one's crucial. It shows if the client figured out the correct distribution point based on its network location, its boundary, and the boundary group setup.
So did it even find the right server?
Precisely. And finally, contenttransfermanager.log. This one tracks the actual download attempt, the handshake with the DP, starting the transfer. Problems here could be permissions, maybe network issues blocking the transfer itself. Checking these three usually tells you if it's failing to find the content or getting the wrong DP, or if something's blocking the actual data flow. Gives you the what and often the where.
And you mentioned locationservices.log and boundaries. That seems like a really common area where things go wrong based on the sources. What are the typical slip-ups with boundaries and boundary groups we should be checking?
Oh, absolutely. Boundaries are a classic. It's often the small details. So for the boundaries themselves, you got to make sure the client's subnet or its IP range is actually defined correctly in SCCM. And, check that things like DNS resolution or maybe the AD site config match up with where the client thinks it is on the network.
So the map needs to be accurate.
Exactly. Then for boundary groups, you need to confirm two things. One, is that boundary actually in a boundary group? And two, crucially, does that group have a distribution point assigned to it that has the content you're trying to download?
Right, the GP has to be linked to the location.
Yes. And the sources highlight that even like a small network change, maybe updating IP ranges, can cause a client to suddenly not fit into its old boundary group. It kind of falls through the cracks, can't find a DP, and boom, 0% download.
That makes perfect sense. Those groups are like the gatekeepers for the content. Okay, but what if the logs and boundaries seem okay? The client is finding the right DP, but maybe the content isn't actually there, or the DP itself is having a bad day. What do we check around content distribution and the DP's health?
Good point. Next step is definitely validating the content and the DP. For content distribution, jump into the SCCM console. Check the status of that specific application or package. Is it showing as successfully distributed to the DP the client is trying to use? If you see errors there, sometimes just redistributing the package can fix it, like a refresh.
Okay, check content status, maybe redistribute. What about the DP itself?
For distribution point health, you need to verify a few things. Is the DP online? Is it maybe overloaded with requests? Does it have the right permission set up? Sometimes, a DP just gets stuck. A quick reconfiguration in the console, or even just restarting the relevant services on the DP server can sometimes bring it back to life.
Simple restart, the classic IT fix. Okay, so scope, logs, boundaries, DP health, content status. We're covering a lot. What about the client itself? Are there settings on the client, like maybe fallback options or policies that could be messing things up? Or does the client sometimes just need a good kick, like a reset?
Excellent question. Yes, the client's own state is vital. First, check the fallback configuration. This is usually in the deployment type settings in SCCM. If a client can't reach its preferred DP, it should be able to fall back to others, like maybe DPs in the default site boundary group, but that fallback needs to be enabled and configured correctly.
So there's a plan B, potentially.
Essentially, yeah. Then on the client machine itself, try forcing a policy refresh. You can usually do this from the Configuration Manager Control Panel applet under the Actions tab. Run the machine policy retrieval and evaluation cycle. This makes sure the client grabs the latest settings, boundary info, everything. Sometimes it just hasn't picked up a recent change.
Quick and easy thing to try. And if that doesn't work,
well, then you have to consider client health. The sources definitely mention this. Sometimes the SCCM client installation itself just gets corrupted somehow. It happens. In those cases, actually reinstalling the client on the affected machine can fix it. It sounds drastic, maybe, but we see it work surprisingly often. It basically forces a clean slate for the client's configuration.
a reinstall. Have you tried turning it off and on again? But for the SCCM client. Okay, good to keep in the back pocket.
Yeah.
Beyond those core SCCM components, are there other gremlins we should be aware of, like maybe network glitches hiding somewhere or issues with the content files themselves?
Yes, definitely don't ignore the wider environment. Network issues are super common. Firewalls, maybe antivirus software, even proxies. Could they be blocking the download traffic between the client and the DP? Worth checking those rules. Also, basic network stuff. DNS problems preventing the client from resolving the DP's name, or routing issues stopping the packets from getting there.
Standard network troubleshooting, basically.
Pretty much. And one more thing, content validation. Sometimes the content package on the DP itself might be corrupt, like the hash doesn't match what the client expects. The download won't even start if that happens. You can usually trigger a validation of the package content on the DP from the SCCM console. If it fails, redistributing it is often the fix.
Okay, wow, that's a really comprehensive checklist. So let's pull it all together. Someone's listening right now, staring at that 0%. What's the systematic plan, the roadmap based on these sources?
Right, the methodical approach. First, log analysis. Dive into cas.log, locationservices.log, contenttransfermanager.log. Pinpoint where it's failing. Second, boundary review. Seriously, double check those boundaries and boundary group assignments. Make sure the client fits correctly and the DP is associated. Third, policy and health check on the client. Force that policy refresh. If still stuck, maybe consider the client reinstall. And finally, check content and DP health. Validate the content, maybe redistribute it, ensure the DP is healthy and reachable. If you follow those steps, systematically, you should be able to figure out if it's network, boundaries, the client, or the content DP itself. And keep an eye out for specific error codes in the logs too, like that 0x87D000607 often points towards boundary or content location issues, giving you a strong hint.
So really, that 0% isn't just an error message, it's a symptom. It's telling you that somewhere in that complex chain, from the client asking for content to finding the right server to the server delivering it, something's broken. And fixing it means being a bit of a detective, connecting those dots, logs, boundaries, configurations, network paths.
Exactly that. And understanding how all these pieces connect, it's not just about fixing this download problem. It helps you build a much better mental model of how SCCM actually works in your environment, which, leads to maybe a final thought. How often might a change you make somewhere else on your network, something seemingly unrelated, like a firewall tweak or a subnet update, how might that ripple through and unexpectedly break SCCM downloads somewhere else entirely? It's something worth thinking about as you manage these complex systems.
That is definitely food for thought, always thinking about those dependencies.
Oh.
Well, thank you for walking us through the sources and giving us this fantastic troubleshooting guide. Hopefully, for anyone listening, this deep dive helps you finally get those SCCM downloads unstuck and moving past 0%.